Imagine walking into a room where um, the tension is just so palpable it physically pushes against you.
Oh, yeah. Like a waiting area before a round of, brutal corporate layoffs or something.
Exactly. Or a hospital waiting room. Everyone around you is just buzzing with this frantic, jagged energy. Shoulders are tied up by their ears. People are, mindlessly refreshing their phones,
Breathing really shallowly, too.
right? Breathing shallowly. And then you notice one person who's just, well, sitting there.
Yeah.
They aren't checked out. They aren't putting on a brave face, but they are completely, inexplicably at ease. They carry this baseline lightness that almost feels contradictory to the environment. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are exploring exactly that kind of presence.
It really challenges our standard assumptions about what it means to be grounded or, what it looks like to be a person of substance. Usually when we picture someone who has done a tremendous amount of inner work or someone deeply spiritual,
We imagine a certain heaviness to them,
exactly, we expect them to carry the weight of the world, to be incredibly serious.
right? Like wisdom requires a permanent furrowed brow. Well, we have a single, highly fascinating source text for you today that completely dismantles that idea. It's a collection of excerpts from a piece called The Architecture of Weightless Beingness.
Such a great title.
It really is. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore a concept from this reading that goes by the rather poetic title of The Air Baby. Or, if you want the highly academic version, Soul Evolved Divine Integrated Beingness.
Which is a bit of a mouthful.
A massive mouthful, yeah.
Uh,
But maybe a bit esoteric. But our goal for you today is to decode this framework, cut through the abstract language, and uncover a profoundly practical way to exist in a heavy world without being crushed by it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the very first thing we have to establish is that we are absolutely not talking about a literal infant.
No, we are definitely not. The air baby is a metaphor. It represents a specific stage of adult human development or soul evolution, depending on the lens you want to use.
Right. This framework flips the script, suggesting that the ultimate evolution of a person isn't carrying more weight, but achieving a state of integrated lightness.
And that concept of lightness introduces itself immediately in the reading with a really striking idea.
Yeah.
The author points out that people operating at this level don't actually arrive in the space in the way we normally think of arriving.
Yeah, the phrasing used is that they did not arrive, they remembered.
Right. They're operating in bodies that have forgotten how to be heavy.
And to understand what remembering means here, think about the mechanics of how we usually move through the world. If you are trying to arrive somewhere like a career milestone or a state of enlightenment,
Or even just trying to command a room.
exactly, there is an inherent striving to it. There's tension in the muscles, a forward lean, a subtle anxiety about whether you will actually get there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But remembering is the opposite physiological and psychological process. When you remember something, you relax back into a truth that already exists.
Which creates what this author calls a peculiar dissonance. I kept turning that phrase over in my mind. A peculiar dissonance. The sensation of knowing something the room does not know. Holding a frequency no one has named yet.
It's a powerful image.
It is. And to try and ground what that actually feels like for you listening, think about being stuck in a high-stakes corporate meeting.
Yeah.
The budget is slashed, everyone is panicking, shouting over each other, terrified the company's going under.
Total chaos.
Total chaos. But you happen to be the only person in the room who knows the secret. The company was just quietly bought out for billions of dollars. Everyone's jobs are totally safe, and massive bonuses are coming tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Right. You can't say anything, but you have this secret lightness. You're present in the room watching the panic unfold, but you have a complete lack of anxiety that fundamentally confuses everyone else who is currently sweating through their suits.
I love that. And taking that corporate buyout analogy a step further, the vital thing to notice is that your lightness in that meeting isn't a delusion.
Right. You aren't making it up.
No, you aren't engaged in wishful thinking. You are simply operating from a broader, more complete set of facts that the rest of the room just hasn't caught up to yet.
Yeah, exactly.
For the individual in this framework, this lightness isn't about ignoring the physical reality of the world or trying to escape the body. I mean, they haven't checked out.
Yep.
They've just discovered that the body itself doesn't have to be a dense trap. The reading actually describes this internal state using imagery like every cell a small sky and every heartbeat a weather system.
Every cell a small sky. Physiologically, anxiety constricts us.
Yeah.
We feel tight, small, locked in, but every cell, a small sky, implies this vast, breathable internal space.
It does.
Now, if you encounter someone walking around with vast internal space, entirely unbothered by the chaos around them, the immediate assumption is that they've lived a very charmed life.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to assume they just, well, avoid the hard parts of being human, that they duck whenever things get messy.
Oh, absolutely. That is the most common misconception, and it's addressed head-on in the text. This state of unbothered lightness only emerges after a person has moved through what are referred to as the denser initiations.
The denser initiations.
Yeah, and the specific elements listed are earth, water, and fire.
Let's break down how those initiations actually operate. Because they aren't just poetic metaphors, are they? They represent the most brutal parts of the human experience.
What I really do.
Like, Earth represents material reality, survival fears, maybe a severe health crisis or financial ruin.
Exactly. And water is the emotional realm. Profound grief, heartbreak, the kind of sorrow that just threatens to drown you.
Yeah. And fire is transformation. It's the complete burning down of the ego, a massive life upheaval where everything you thought you were gets turned to ash.
And the mechanism of how a person handles those elements is what separates a typical response from this evolved state.
Right.
Usually when we hit the fire or the water, our instinct is to resist. We build dams against the grief. We put up firewalls against a transformation because it's agonizing.
Of course it is.
But the resistance is actually what causes the lasting heaviness. The individual we are talking about doesn't transcend these elements or magically float above them. They allow the fire to burn entirely through them until there is no dead wood left to catch fire.
Wow.
Yeah. They allow the water to wash completely through their nervous system without trying to contain it.
So by not resisting the elements, they integrate them so thoroughly that the elements become transparent, like air.
Yes, exactly.
Invisible, omnipresent, but holding everything. There is a line that perfectly captures this. This is not lightness as avoidance. It is lightness as completion.
That's a huge distinction.
It is. And the results of that completion are described as grief without weight, memory without attachment, and wisdom without performance.
Those specific results challenge a lot of modern therapeutic models, honestly, particularly the idea of carrying our wounds as a permanent identity.
Okay, I have to jump in here and push back on that, though, because grief without weight immediately sets off alarm bells for me.
I can see why.
Right. Like if someone claims they are experiencing genuine grief over a massive loss, but it doesn't weigh them down at all, aren't they just dissociating?
Well,
We talk so much about spiritual bypassing, where you slap a good vibes only sticker over profound pain and just float away for the reality of it.
what's fascinating here is how clearly we can delineate between dissociation and integration once we look at the internal mechanics.
Okay.
Dissociation is an emergency exit. When the pain of that water or fire initiation is too much, the brain pulls the ripcord and severs the connection to the body. The person goes numb, they're light, but they are hollow.
Right.
Integration is the exact opposite of an exit. It means the grief was felt so totally, and the lesson of that grief was so fully absorbed that it no longer exists as a separate, heavy object you have to carry on your back.
Oh, I see. It's like eating a really heavy nutrient-dense meal. While you are carrying that food in your stomach, you feel weighed down. You might even feel sluggish or sick. But once your body does the hard mechanical work of digesting it, those nutrients get integrated. They become your blood, your bone, your cellular energy.
Yeah.
The physical weight of the food in your stomach is gone, but the substance of it has literally become you.
That is a perfect way to put it.
The grief is no longer a backpack. It's just woven into your empathy.
Exactly. And because it is fully digested, the person's presence in a room shifts. The framework uses a brilliant metaphor for this. It suggests that this kind of integrated person changes an environment the way a window opened changes air quality without announcing itself.
Think about what that feels like when you're in a stuffy, suffocating room. A window doesn't have to slam open and shout, "I am opening now. Prepare for the fresh breeze."
Right, it doesn't make a scene.
It just opens. The relief is immediate, silent, and undeniable.
And once you understand that quiet, digested state, you start to see how this person's relationship to spirituality or, the concept of the sacred completely transforms. If you aren't carrying around the heavy backpack of unresolved trauma, you stop looking for massive, dramatic release valves.
Right. If you aren't constantly suffocating, You don't need to go on a dramatic quest for oxygen.
Exactly.
If they aren't looking for profound meaning in complex rituals or chasing peak experiences on a mountaintop, it stands to reason they are finding the sacred in the completely mundane parts of their day.
They find it in what the author calls the breath between sentences. They find it in the pause before a decision.
Wow.
Yeah, it's located in the body's own quiet intelligence, just choosing what it needs in any given moment without manufacturing a crisis. The core realization driving this is that they have stopped departing from themselves. They recognize that they were, quite literally, never not it.
Never not it. If you truly internalize the idea that you are already the thing you were searching for, the chase is over. All the striving, all the endless self-improvement projects, they just drop away.
Which naturally creates a characteristic stillness, but it's vital to recognize that this stillness is an absence of urgency, not an absence of care.
That's a good point.
People on the outside frequently misinterpret this. They see the lack of frantic motion and assume the person is detached or apathetic. But the reality is that the person has simply, in the words of the text, learned not to leak.
Learned not to leak. That phrase, learn not to leak, is probably the most practical takeaway from this entire framework. Let's look at the mechanics of leaking energy.
Yeah, let's do that.
Imagine your house in the dead of winter. If you have terrible insulation, drafty windows, and an unsealed roof, you have to blast the furnace 24/7. You are burning through expensive fuel, making a ton of noise, and you're still shivering because all the heat is bleeding out into the neighborhood.
A nightmare.
Total nightmare. Now look at a modern, hyper-energy efficient house with perfect insulation. The heater barely ever kicks on. It just hums quietly, maintaining a perfect internal climate with almost zero effort.
The human equivalent of that drafty house is a person running 50 background applications on their internal smartphone. We bleed cognitive and emotional energy constantly. We leak it by obsessing over how we are being perceived in a meeting.
Oh, yeah?
We leak it through performative spirituality, making sure everyone knows how mindful we are. We leak it by endlessly people-pleasing or doom-scrolling to find an external source of validation. All of that takes a massive, invisible toll on our daily energy reserves.
We leak energy just trying to convince the room that we deserve to be there. The furnace is blasting just to maintain a persona.
And when someone finally closes all those background apps, when they perfectly insulate their internal house, they suddenly have access to 100% of their own energy. They aren't reaching outward to grab validation, and they aren't projecting outward to manage your opinion of them. They are completely settled.
But that brings up a really thorny question about how you actually function in our current society.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, if there's no chase, no urgency, and you are no longer burning fuel to prove your worth, what happens to your daily life? How do you hold down a job or participate in a culture that is explicitly engineered around constant hustle?
It leads to what is categorized as the post-striving stage. The nature of what work means gets fundamentally redefined.
Okay, how so?
Well, for an individual in this state, the work is no longer about doing. It's about being so completely that any action they take merely becomes an expression of that state, rather than a compensation for something they lack.
Doing as an expression rather than a compensation. That is a massive paradigm shift. It means you aren't grinding on a project late at night to compensate for a deep-seated fear that you aren't smart enough.
Right.
You aren't volunteering for a cause to compensate for a fear that you aren't a good person. You still chop wood and carry water. You still do the project, but the internal posture is completely different.
Completely different.
But from the outside, if the striving has vanished, radical acceptance can look awfully similar to someone who has just thrown their hands up in defeat.
It's a fine line from an external viewpoint. The author actually anticipates this exact confusion and draws a razor-sharp distinction. They write, complacency has given up. The air baby has arrived.
Complacency has given up because it's exhausted by the gap between reality and expectation.
Precisely. The person who gives up is still tormented by the divide between who they are and what they feel they should be doing. They're just too tired to try bridging the gap anymore.
Yeah.
But this integrated state means the gap itself has been dissolved. There is no separation between the actor and the action. They aren't resting from the work. They have become the work. Their spiritual signature is simply their breath. Their most profound teaching is often completely wordless.
The ultimate gift they offer the world is demonstrating that a human being can exist with full soul presence in an ordinary body, in an ordinary moment. No fireworks, no dramatic displays, just being fully present without the performance.
We are deeply conditioned by our culture to associate the extraordinary with noise. with massive achievements, millions of followers, or undeniable displays of power.
which perfectly explains why these individuals are so rarely recognized out in the wild. Bringing this esoteric philosophy down to the pavement, how do you actually spot this energy in your daily life?
You might not unless you know what you are looking for. Divinity, or wisdom that wears a light signature, looks completely mundane to people who are still looking for thunder.
Working for thunder, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. If your baseline expectation is that a true leader must have a booming voice and dominate a room, or that a wise person must have suffered publicly and loudly, you will walk right past this perfectly insulated person and never notice them.
We are addicted to thunder. But sensitive people, especially people who have spent time navigating their own fire and water initiations, they will feel it.
Oh, absolutely.
They will walk into a room and recognize a quality of presence that operates by 4 distinct rules. It asks nothing.
Mhm.
It holds everything. It disturbs nothing essential. And it quietly makes the room more breathable.
That goes back to the elemental nature they are named after. The foundational rule of this state is that air does not explain itself. Air doesn't need to present a resume to justify its presence in a room. It doesn't need to logically convince you that it is vital for your survival. It simply exists, it moves through, and everything it touches breathes a little easier just because it was there.
I think the greatest value of this deep dive for you listening right now is the profound comfort built into this framework. It's permission to put the heavy bags down. True personal evolution, true wisdom, doesn't require you to be loud.
Not at all.
It doesn't require endless complexity or a permanent state of suffering. You don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders just to prove that you understand how heavy the world is.
It is an invitation to examine where your energy is leaking. I would highly encourage you to observe the dynamics in your own life this week. Look at your workplace, your family gatherings, your friend groups.
Yeah, that's a great exercise.
Notice who is constantly looking for thunder, who is manufacturing urgency, creating drama, and blasting their internal furnace with all the windows wide open. And conversely, who are the people who quietly, without any fanfare, just make the room a little more breathable when they sit down?
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to chew on. A practical application of everything we've decoded today.
Yeah.
If air does not explain itself, and if it simply changes the environment just by existing, how much of your own daily exhaustion comes strictly from the effort of trying to explain, justify, or announce your presence to the world? Think back to that tense, frantic room we imagined at the very beginning of this conversation. What would happen tomorrow if you stopped trying to fix the panic, stopped trying to prove you belong there, and just decided to be the open window instead?